Good afternoon, everyone. Virgo. Text messages won't cut it. Phone calls aren't enough. Even video isn't sufficient for what they need to say. Someone wants to see you face to face because the confession they're carrying requires your physical presence, requires them to look into your eyes while they speak words that have been building pressure for weeks or months, requires the vulnerability of being in the same space with nowhere to hide behind screens or distance or carefully edited messages. And what they're going to confess will catch you completely off guard. Not because you suspected nothing, but because what you suspected is wrong. The story you've been telling yourself about this person, about this situation, about why things are the way they are. It's incomplete at best, entirely backwards at worst, and they're about to fill in gaps you didn't even know existed, about to reveal motivations you never considered, about to explain behavior that's confused you by showing you the hidden variables you couldn't see. So let's explore this. Who wants to see you, what they're confessing, why it requires in person delivery, and how to prepare for information that will shift your entire understanding of what's been happening between you. Take what resonates here. This is about imminent face to face confession. You remain in control of whether you grant the meeting, always. This is simply an invitation to understand what's driving their need for your physical presence. Let me start by describing who this person is, because the energy is very specific. This is someone you have unresolved tension with, someone whose behavior hasn't made complete sense to you, someone who's been distant or strange or confusing in ways you've been trying to interpret, an ex who left without clear explanation, a person you were getting close to who suddenly pulled back, a friend whose energy shifted without obvious cause, someone whose actions and words haven't aligned and you've been trying to solve the puzzle of why, and now they want to see you in person, not casually, not just to catch up, with intention, with something specific to say that they've determined cannot be said any other way, that loses essential meaning through any medium except direct human contact, that requires the risk and rawness of being physically vulnerable while exposing emotional truth. Now, let me talk about why it has to be in person, because understanding this tells you how significant the confession is. They need to see your face when they say it, need to watch your reaction in real time without the delay or distortion of digital communication, need the accountability that comes from being present, need to gauge whether you believe them, whether you're angry, whether you're receptive, whether there's any possibility of what they're confessing leading somewhere. They also need the finality that in person provides. Whatever they're confessing, it's something they can't take back. Can't unsend like a text message. Can't delete or edit after the fact. Once they say it to your face, it's real, it's permanent, it changes the dynamic forever, regardless of how you respond. And they need that permanence. Need to commit fully to this confession instead of testing waters through safer channels. And honestly, they need the closure that only face to face can provide. Whether the confession leads to reconciliation or final goodbye, they need to say this thing in person so they can move forward without the haunting of, what if I had just told them? This is them refusing to live with regret, choosing courage over comfort, deciding that the risk of rejection in person is better than the certainty of wondering what if forever. Let me tell you what the unexpected confession might be, because it falls into specific categories. Category 1: I left because I was scared, not because I didn't care. You thought they walked away because they didn't want you, because you weren't enough, because they found someone better, or lost interest, or realized you weren't right for them. But the truth is, they were terrified of how much they felt, of vulnerability, of commitment, of being hurt, of not being enough themselves. And they're confessing that their distance wasn't about you lacking, it was about them panicking. Category 2: I have feelings I never told you about. You thought you were just friends, or that whatever was between you was casual or one sided. But they've been carrying romantic feelings they've hidden because the timing seemed wrong, because they were afraid of ruining the friendship, because they thought you didn't feel the same way, because they were in other relationships or assumed you were. And now they can't hold it anymore. They need you to know, regardless of whether it changes anything. Category 3: there was something I didn't tell you that changes everything. Some piece of information they withheld, not maliciously necessarily, but protectively, or because circumstances prevented disclosure. And that hidden information explains behavior you misinterpreted, explains distance you thought was rejection, explains choices that seemed cruel but were actually protective, and they're ready to reveal it now. To give you context that reframes the entire history between you. Category 4: I made a mistake and I can't live with it anymore. They're confessing to something they did that hurt you, something you maybe don't even know about, or something you know about but don't know the full truth behind. And the guilt has become unbearable, and they need to come clean, to take full accountability, to apologize properly, to give you information you deserve, even if it makes them look worse, because their integrity demands it. Category 5: I want another chance, and here's why I'm ready now when I wasn't before. This is the confession that they've changed, that they've done actual work, that whatever made them incapable before has been addressed, and they're not just asking for another chance with words. They're prepared to demonstrate with specifics what's different, what they've learned, what they're committing to, what they'll do differently this time. Let me slow down here, because I need to address what unexpected means in this context. You might have suspected some of this. You might have wondered if there were hidden feelings or unspoken truth or more to the story than you are seeing. But the specific details of their confession will surprise you. The depth of what they're revealing, the particular reasons behind behavior you misunderstood, the timeline of when they realized things they're only now speaking, the vulnerability they're about to display that you've never seen from them before. So, unexpected doesn't mean you suspected nothing. It means you had the story wrong. You filled in blanks with assumptions that made sense based on limited information. But the actual truth is different than your logical conclusions, and hearing it will make you rethink entire timelines, will make you say, Wait, so when you did this, it was actually because of that? Will make you see past events through completely different lenses. Drop a comment if you already know who wants to see you. If there's someone you've been feeling pulled to lately, or someone whose energy has been hovering. If you've had the thought, I wonder if they're going to reach out without knowing why you're thinking it, because I think many of you know you've been sensing the approach of this confession, even if you don't know what it contains yet. You know what else I'm sensing? The logistics of how this face to face will be arranged. They're going to be direct about wanting to see you, not vague, we should catch up sometime, but specific. Can I see you? I need to talk to you about something in person. It's important. And that directness will signal this isn't casual, will prepare you that something significant is coming even before you agree to meet. And for some of you, they might not ask. They might just show up at your work, at your home, at a place they know you frequent, because they've determined that if they ask, you might say no, and they can't let that happen. They can't let this confession go unsaid. So they're taking the risk of appearing unannounced because the urgency of what they need to tell you outweighs the potential awkwardness. Let's sit with this for a moment. What if their confession validates everything you secretly hoped was true? What if they confirm that yes, there were feelings, yes, the distance was about fear, not disinterest, yes, things weren't what they seemed? What if hearing the truth gives you closure you didn't even know you needed, or opens a door you thought was permanently closed? What if this in person confession becomes one of those pivotal moments you look back on as the day everything shifted? Or what if it doesn't give you what you hoped? What if their confession is true but not helpful? What if knowing the real reasons doesn't change your decision about whether to engage? What if they confess feelings, but you've moved past the point where those feelings matter? What if they reveal truths that explain the past, but don't create a future? Either way, hearing it matters because incomplete information haunts us. Because wondering what if corrodes peace. Because even difficult truths are better than operating on false assumptions. So, whether their confession leads to reconciliation or just to clarity, it serves you to hear it. Let me offer you guidance about handling this in person confession. First, if you agree to meet, choose a neutral location, not your home where you might feel trapped, not theirs where they have territorial advantage. Somewhere public but private enough for emotional conversation. A quiet coffee shop, a park, somewhere you can leave easily if you need to, but where you can also sit and process if the confession warrants it. Second, go in with an open mind but protected heart. Be willing to hear them fully, but don't let their vulnerability immediately dismantle all your boundaries. They get to confess. You get to process. You don't owe immediate forgiveness or reconciliation just because they've been brave enough to be honest. Appreciate the honesty without feeling obligated to act on it immediately. Third, ask clarifying questions. Don't just accept the confession at surface level. Dig deeper. When did you realize this? Why now? What's changed? What do you want from telling me this? Get the full picture. Understand not just what they're confessing, but why and what they're hoping happens as a result. Fourth, watch their body language alongside their words. In-person confession reveals more than content. Watch their eyes, their hands, their breathing. Are they genuinely vulnerable or performing vulnerability? Are they nervous because they're being real or because they're manipulating? Body language tells truth that words can mask. Fifth, give yourself time before responding fully. You can acknowledge what they've said without immediately deciding what it means for your relationship. Thank you for telling me this. I need time to process, is a complete response. You don't owe them resolution in the moment of confession. They've had weeks or months to prepare this. You just heard it. You're allowed processing time. Let me ask you one final question. What would you need their confession to contain for it to matter? What specific truths would need to be revealed for it to change anything? What accountability would need to be taken? What evidence of change would need to be presented? What commitment would need to be offered? Know your answer now before you hear their confession, so their vulnerability doesn't cloud your judgment. So you can evaluate what they're saying against what you actually need instead of just being moved by the emotion of the moment. Because confessions are powerful, they create connection, but connection without compatibility still doesn't work. Here's what you need to understand: they want to see you in person because what they're confessing matters to them and potentially to you. It's significant enough to require courage, vulnerable enough to demand proximity, true enough that they're willing to risk rejection to speak it, and unexpected enough that it will shift how you understand everything that's happened between you. But their confession being important doesn't mean you have to do anything with it. You can hear them, appreciate their honesty, and still choose yourself. Still maintain boundaries. Still decide that their truth, while valuable for understanding, doesn't change your path forward. You're allowed to receive confession without reciprocation, to grant closure without offering reconciliation. Take what resonates from this reading, leave what doesn't, and remember that you remain in control of whether you meet them, of how you respond to their confession, of what you do with the information once you have it. They want to see you in person, and they will confess something that catches you by surprise, something that recontextualizes, that explains, that reveals, that changes understanding, even if it doesn't change decisions. And you get to decide if hearing it serves you or if staying in incomplete knowledge serves you better. Trust your inner knowing. Trust that you'll know whether to grant this meeting. Trust that if you do, you can handle whatever they confess. Trust that surprise doesn't mean destabilization. Trust that truth, even unexpected truth, ultimately serves you better than comfortable illusion. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing to hear difficult or surprising truths. Thank you for being someone who can hold space for confession without losing yourself in it. You're exactly where you need to be. About to be asked for in-person meeting, about to hear unexpected confession, about to have understanding shift. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Stay grounded, listen fully, and remember, their confession is information. What you do with it, entirely your choice.